Hi, my name is Kathy.
I'm Paul.
I'm Susan.
We'd like to introduce you to our dog, Moose.
In 2008, we hadn't had a dog for about 4 years, and Susan and I are big fans of the North Shore Animal Shelter in Salem. We always have had rescue animals. So Susan and I decided one day, spur of the moment, to go over there and just look at the pets. And when we got there, they had just gotten puppies from Virginia.
There were like 10 or 12 of them, and Moose was part of a litter of a few that looked like him and some that looked more like terriers, and then there was some tan, more Labrador Retriever looking ones. But Moose was just hanging out in the back of his cage, just laying there and being cool, and the others were jumping around being puppies and excited. And I said to Mom, we need that one because he's chill and he'll be easier to take care of.
We took him out. When we went out, he wouldn't play with the ball. He just sat right in front of me, looking up at me like, I love you already. And I called Paul on the phone and I said, did you mean it when you said we could get a dog? And he said, yes. And now we have Moose. He was already pre-named Henry, and we liked it. But we really had decided way ahead of time that if we ever had another dog, we were going to name him Moose. And so he got the name Mr. Henry Moose. They give you a little history of where he's from and his lineage, and all they could tell us was that his mother was some kind of terrier. They didn't know who the father was. But as we got Moose and he grew, we could see ourselves that he was really a flat-coated retriever mixed with terrier. When we first got Moose, we took him to an area vet. They did the neutering, and there was a little bit of a problem. He developed blood in his bladder that even though they weren't a 24-hour vet, they kept Moose for 24 hours a day, taking care of him for over a week. All of the staff took turns, and they would go in on their off time and Saturdays and Sundays to give him medication and take care of him. During the course of his healing, they had to do an ultrasound to make sure that all the blood was cleared up in his bladder, and they found a big dark mass. They discovered was that they think he had had a kidney stone at some point which he couldn't pass, and it caused one of his kidneys to die. And he had to be operated on immediately to remove that kidney. And so we're just very, very grateful for the situation. It wasn't the best situation going through all of that and having him be in the vet and the medication and so forth. But if it hadn't happened, we never would have known that one of his kidneys had died, and we could have lost Moose.
Well, Moose has a lot of odd things that he does. He, as a baby does with a blankie, Moose has his blankie. Moose will take his blankie, lay on the living room floor as we're sitting watching TV, and he will take his paws and he'll bunch up a part of the blankie, and he actually suckles the blanket. And it's just the oddest thing. I've never heard of other dogs doing that, but he actually does that.
The other thing that we love about Moose is his friendliness. And Marcel will tell you that when he first came to my shop, KDA Custom Embroidery, that Moose was all over him, just loved him. And Moose greets everyone who comes in the door like they've come to see him. He loves the UPS man. He knows the sound of the UPS truck when he's coming up the street. When he doesn't stop in front of our house for a delivery, Moose runs out in the yard and will follow him with his eyes up the street. So sad that Mike, the UPS driver, did not stop that day. When Mike does stop, he always brings Moose a treat. Moose has some amazing personality traits. Right from the beginning, one of the best traits he had was obedience. When we first got Moose, we had talked about getting an invisible fence for our yard, being close to a street, and we decided after he had been in the yard for a little bit, we didn't need an invisible fence. He knows his parameters. He never goes outside of the yard. He walks along our stone wall, and if he wants to leave the yard, he looks at us to see if it's okay. He runs up back, and we have some woods in the back that he loves. When we call him, he comes immediately. We've never had any problems.
Moose, as you could see, is he's somewhere around 55 pounds. At this point, he thinks he's a lap dog. Now I like to lounge back in my recliner, and Moose will all of a sudden come over, put his paws up on my legs, and I know that means I'm coming up. So he gets his front paws up and he starts climbing with his rear paws. He gets up there and just flops himself down on my lap. I'm the only one he does it to. I don't know, is it something about me? After he's laid down for a bit, then he'll sit up and it's on my lap. And of course now I can't see the TV.
Moose hates the rain. When we first had Moose, I had to take him out with an umbrella over him. He doesn't like the snow either. Paul had to actually snow plow a path in the yard in the wintertime so that he would go out into the yard and do his business, and he would only go in the paths that Paul had made for him.
Well, Moose has just been the best dog that we could have ever expected. You know, going from not even being really sure we wanted a dog to not being able to imagine our lives without him. We're just so pleased with him. He's sweet, he's obedient, he's friendly and loving to the point where a relative of ours who's in the hospital just wants to see Moose to cheer him up.
I know that I fought for a long time getting another dog when you're attached to another dog that you've lost, but I can't imagine what our life would be like without Moose.
Moose has been a pleasure. He's a family member. We've adopted him and he's adopted us, and it's just been a great experience, just a lot of fun. We're blessed to have a dog like Moose.